and Chief Executive Officer of Operation Hope, America's first and largest financial services network for the poor, the struggling class, the teetering class, and folks with too much month at the end of their money. Black and white, urban and rural. The most important thing to say about Operation Hope today, though, is that we reintroduce people back to themselves. And that's sort of part of what this conversation is about. I want to apologize for my address and the background. I'm on retreat, but you can't schedule a need for response. And so I wanted to respond with regard to Charlottesville, Virginia. First and foremost, my heart goes out to all the family, to the loved ones of those who were injured in this senseless and heartless, hateful act. There are no excuses. There are no excuses for hurting somebody else because you feel hurt. My heart really goes out for the mother and the father. I've seen your interviews on television. You've been very gracious and very graceful and very loving in talking about what your daughter gave her life for on behalf of others. It's not lost on me that the group, this hate group that professes Nazi allegiance, was talking about black people, talking about Hispanics, talking about people who are outside the traditional power band in America. But the young lady who lost her life was also white. I'm almost positive that wasn't their target. I'm almost positive that the hate group did not want it to work out just this way. They were hoping to hit somebody that looked like, well, me. But this is a reflection point, and this is an inflection point, and the universe has given us something to think about, that hurt people hurt people. And to quote Maya Angelou, and I'm going to paraphrase here, I've seen love solve endless problems, but I've never seen hurt solve one. I'm going to repeat that. I'm paraphrasing here, and again from Maya Angelou. And I'm sorry I cannot respond to your comments and your queries. This is unscheduled, so you'll watch this whenever you get around to it if you're not able to sign on now. And I can't respond to your comments because I wanted this to be a statement and not necessarily just a conversation as I normally do. And I'll respond to you, I promise you, later today. But I want to get this off my heart and onto your soul and into your ears. Again, Maya Angelou said, and I want to take her counsel under deep advisement. This wise lady said that I've seen love solve tons of problems, endless problems. I've never seen hate solve even one. Hate doesn't solve problems. It never will. And so I want to make it very clear for those who are used to me being, well, my middle name, Hope. I am hopeful. I do believe rainbows follow storms. I do believe that loss creates leaders. I do believe that the better part of our angels will rise out of this horrible incident. In fact, it's already in many ways began to happen. I've gotten emails from a number of very powerful leaders in business and in civic society who happen to be Caucasian, who wanted me to know they don't co-sign this disgusting act of violence. In fact, they want to know what they could do to help. They wanted me to know that they weren't being silent now. They wanted to be loud. They wanted to be proud of who they were. They want their children, their co-workers, their neighbors to know that they were good people. They wanted me to know that they were good people. I want you all watching that you sent me these notes to know I do know you're good people. I do want also to say, though, this was wrong. It was hateful. It's unforgivable that some punk who was unhappy with his life decided to take somebody else's life, or just to maim and disparage and dismember and to hurt people with whom had a difference of opinion. I do believe we need to take a stand for what's right. I do believe you can deputize and co-sign hate. So let me also say, and just be very blunt about this, I've grown up respecting my leaders and heads of state. I'm not going to get personal here about any one individual, but I will say that it's important to talk without being offensive, to listen without being defensive, and to always leave even our adversary with their dignity. Because if you don't, they'll spend the rest of their life trying to make you miserable. And I think that our president has not been helpful in this regard. I think that during the campaign, when people said words don't matter, and he said to angry crowds in the South, when a black person dared to push back on what was being said at the podium, he inferred, I wouldn't mind if that person got punched. I wouldn't mind if violence was used to expel these people, and I'd pay the legal bills. Now, some would say he was joking, or he was making light, or these are just words. And I'm not in his heart. I wish him the best because I wish America the best. I mean, I need him to win now that he's president, because if he loses, on some level I lose. We all lose. I'm not rooting for his failure. I'm rooting for his enlightenment. But I do know that this is a zero-sum game if it's an eye for an eye, because then we all go blind. I do know that hate doesn't work. I do know that words matter. And I'm praying that he gains some enlightenment, and that we all grow up and stop acting like 3-year-olds, and stop having such a thin skin, and you hit me and I'm gonna hit you back, and you said something I don't like, and so all of a sudden I'm gonna throw truth out the window. It's not sustainable, and it's a horrible role model for our children. Bullying is a horrible role model for our children. And I think in many ways we have, consciously or unconsciously, intentionally or unintentionally, whether it was meant to be a joke and lighthearted or a way to get your crowd to co-sign with you, or whether it was serious, I don't know that. I'm not in the man's heart, and I'm not going to try to be. But what I know is it was wrong. And I know that karma's real. And I know that whatever goes around, good or bad, comes around. And I know that what was said in that auditorium had a reflection point, and it had an inflection point, and it had an energy bounce. And I know that it fed what we saw in Virginia. In many ways, our government has to stop not only deputizing hate, saying it's okay, suggesting it's okay, suggesting that you can beat somebody up or hit back just because someone doesn't agree with you, and that's okay. We've got to stop doing that. It doesn't work. Beyond that, it didn't work in South Africa. It didn't work in India. It didn't work in the southern states of America. It hasn't worked in any place in the world, at any time in the world. As a strategy, it does not work. And we've got to replace that hate with healing and with love and with tolerance. We need adults in the room. We need people to stand up and say, this behavior is just not right. This is not who we are as a country. It's not who we are as people. Now, I've got to work with this government. Some parts of this government, and I found many people I can work with, by the way, to move the American agenda forward. But there are limits to what we should do and what we should tolerate, to what we should suggest is okay. And what I'm going to say is that what we are co-signing on and what we are endorsing is not okay. It's the incivility. What do we want our children to see? What do we want our grandchildren to be? And are we saying this is okay? Senators from both sides of the aisle. I'm not a partisan. I've served Republican and Democratic presidents. I've served President George H.W. Bush while I was honored by him. I've served or been honored by Reagan. I've served and worked with President Bill Clinton today. I've served George W. Bush, the son. I've served President Barack Obama. I'm nonpartisan. I'm about moving people's agenda forward. I'm about progress. And if you do the right thing for poor people, I will salute you. I'll be the first to say, put the partisanship aside and thank them for doing the right thing. But the incivility, I cannot stomach. We got to step over mess and not in it. We've got to stop rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. We've got to stop saying what people just want to hear and tell them what they need to understand. We've got a real risk here of the death of truth, the death of honesty, the death of integrity, the death of curiosity, the death of constructive friction. So my first message is, I love you. I love all of you. White, black, rich, poor, conservative or liberal, Republican, Democrat, urban and rural. I love all of you. I love you because it's what God put in my heart. I love you because in many ways you're very lovable. I've seen white folks that are amazing. I've seen black folks that are amazing. I've seen Latinos, Asians, Indians. I've been all around this world, 100 countries, and I have been inspired by the human spirit of all races and places. And I've also seen our worst demons. I've seen the worst side of us come out. And history is a lesson like nobody's business. Before every social crisis, there's an economic crisis. Now I'm pivoting to what this is really about. It would be easy to say that this is a white, poor, rural anger. But those weren't poor, white, rural, angry people with a high school education, as some would suggest is the framework here of the challenge that they've been through so much pain for so many years. And by the way, legitimate. For 60 years, their economy fell apart in these little southern towns, and we didn't do anything to help them, including my black brothers and sisters. When we were running organizations, we didn't go to our white sisters in Walmart who's been there for 30 years, who never thought she'd be there for the rest of her life, who's struggling from paycheck to paycheck, just like my black and brown urban brothers and sisters, and say, we're in this game together, we're in this thing together. It's not about white, black, red, brown, and yellow. It's about having some more green. We didn't say, I'm going to help you too. So there is a legitimate pain of my urban brothers and sisters who are angry or frustrated and didn't think that they had anybody pitching for them. But pain's not going to help them either. Anger is not going to help them either. Hate's not going to help them either. It's going to just make their problem worse. Number one group dying in this country, less than high school educated white men who are depressed. That's the number one group dying in this country. And it's not because of immigrants. It's not because of black folks. It's not because of, no, it's because of their lack of hope. It's because of the death of their aspirations. So before every social crisis in the world, there was an economic crisis. Go do your history about World War II, the tragedy of the Holocaust. And before we killed our Jewish brothers and sisters, we called them friends. But when the economy fell apart after World War I, and for 20 years the economy just got worse, all of a sudden it became not you're my brother, my sister, or my banker, or the butcher, or the cake maker, or the boot repairer. It became you Jew. And no different than today, the problem is not immigration, it's automation. There's been more job deaths because of automation. 9 out of 10 job deaths in the last 10 years, listen to me now, have because of automation, not immigration. And if you had still had that little job in rural America, by the way, at that factory, and if the so-called immigrant that didn't take your job in the first place had not replaced you in a job, in most cases you don't want anyway, because it's in the fields or doing something at a price point that you wouldn't work for in a place you wouldn't work in, you wouldn't have replaced that person. A computer would have, or a robot would have, and that's coming. So no different than that scenario where we're placing the blame on the wrong situation. In Germany, leading up to World War II, the Jews weren't your problem. The Jews weren't the problem. It was the economy that was imploding, exploding, and prosperity had fell away, and people needed somebody to blame and some way to feel better about their pain. But I can't blame this on white, rural, blah, blah, blah demographic that we want to typecast here. These were educated young white kids who took the hoods off. What's that? In some ways, it's the same thing. The folks who lost their job in 2009, middle class, Caucasian, educated, making $120,000 a year, lost that job in 2009, didn't get rehired in 2012, making now $80,000 a year, not $120,000 a year. Now they're under, we said statistically, the government said, oh, everybody's employed. Although 85% of all job growth was retail jobs. 80% of all jobs during that era were retail jobs, not high-paying jobs. So this person now gets rehired, but now they're underwhelmed, they're underemployed, and they're stressed out frustrated, and you may think $80,000 is a lot of money, and it is unless you're making $120,000 before that, unless you've been now unemployed for 2 years, and now you're arguing with your wife, you're arguing with your husband, you don't know how you're going to send your kid to college. Now your kid, you can't just pay for your college education of your kids. You got to get student loans for your kids. Now the student loan debt is stressing you out, stressing your kid out. Now your kid can't find a job right out of college, or even a job or an internship through college. So now that kid's coming back and living with his mother or father until 20 years old, 25 years old, 30 years old, because they can't find a way to, they don't know if they're going to have a life that's as good as their children, as their father or parents had. And the parents don't know whether their children will have a job or career as good as, or life as good as they had. And for so long it was just assumed if you're Caucasian and middle class in America and with an education, you're gonna get a job at $80,000 to $120,000 a year. You're gonna get a house, you're gonna get a wife, you're gonna get 2 dogs, you're gonna get 3 kids, and you're gonna have a vacation a year, and things would be good. And expectations were higher because this was a majority country with majority wealth. And now things are changing, and demographics are changing, and at the same time the economics are changing, and now middle class families are feeling that strain and that pain. And so now you've got middle class college educated whites and my white pained urban rural friends who are coming together with a shared problem, cratering jobs and economic fear. And if anything should make you feel better about this, is that it is not personal. I think that when people know better, they do better. I think that also, if I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. If I don't love me, I don't know how to love you. If I don't respect me, you cannot expect me to respect you. And here's a big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm going to make your life a living hell. This is pain. This is economic pain, the death of aspiration. We need somebody to blame, I guess. I don't, but it seems like that many people do. I can tell you, though, this is not the answer. It's not even a good response. And I can tell you that it will lead to only bad things. We're ruining our global reputation as the largest economy in the world, a place that welcomes all people. We're ruining our diversity message, which is the message of our economy, because you cannot do business with people you don't reflect, respect, or understand. We're ruining the love affair we have with immigration and with inclusion and with solutions. Do you know that 40% of all the owners and runners of Fortune 500 companies came from immigrant families? Hello, who are employing many of the white families watching this video. We don't have the luxury of blaming each other. We don't have the luxury of not living with each other. The Bible and Dr. King have suggested either we learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will die together as fools. And I know that a house divided will not stand. Now, this may not be the video you wanted me to provide. You may have wanted me to lash out at somebody. You may have wanted me to hate somebody. You may have wanted me to say that Nazism is evil. It is evil, by the way. But I refuse to hate. I refuse to give in to my lower angers and frustrations and pains. I think we need to rise above. I think we got to be a role model. We want others to follow. I think we got to be a light on the hill. I think we got to find a better way. I'll end where I started. Maya Angelou said, and I'm paraphrasing, I've seen countless problems resolved with love. I've never seen one thing solved with hate. I hope this has provided some solace for you today. I hope that this has provided some love, some reaffirmation that we can get through this. We have always gotten through this. We got through the Civil War. We got through the Civil Rights Movement. The world got through apartheid. We've gotten through the pain of India when Gandhi gave his life. We've gotten through in Ireland what Michael Collins dealt with the division. We got through Rwanda with the genocide. We've gotten through, as a society, we've gotten through so much. And we can get through this. Now, I'm not concerned about the hate or the racism. I can't get in people's hearts. I'm concerned about us losing hope. And I'm concerned about good people standing down and doing nothing. Do you know that Dr. King only had 30% of the black community support? Do you know that Dr. King also only had 30% of the whites community support? That everybody else stood down and sat on their hands and said, it's not my business, I'm not in this, I have no place in this, I got my own interests. And Bill Clinton once said, President Bill Clinton once said, It's hard to get somebody to agree to the truth when the lie is paying their paycheck. It's hard to get somebody to agree to the truth when the lie is paying their paycheck. And a wise man once told me to rationalize is to tell rational lies. Now, if you want to convince yourself that anger is the answer, you'll be able to do that. If you want to convince yourself that violence is the answer, you'll be able to find a way to do that. Because, by the way, there's been a wonderfully horrible tapestry set up for you to respond to in any way you want. But I know this, thoughts are things. And I know this, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And I know this, you're God's child. We're all God's children. And I know we can rise above this, and I know that God's first cousin is love, and love's helper is hope. And I know that's my middle name. So I'm going to leave you with these thoughts, and I'm going to respond to your comments offline, and I'm sure I'm going to come back for a part 2, but I wanted to just say I have deep pain and deep grievance and deep benevolence and deep care for those who lost their lives and been injured. And I'm going to say again, there's no excuse, none, for this violence. And those who did it need to be persecuted, and put under the jail. And these Nazi groups need to be shut down. And we need to take a stand for what's right. And this is not it. And then after we do that, we got to find a way to love each other. Because I guarantee you it's the only way forward. I love you. This is John Hope Bryant, unbought, unbossed, and unbiased, coming to you straight and no chaser from the Civil Rights Movement. It's about you. It's about your uplift. It's about our love. I'm out.